Last time I spoke about the Bible and I pointed out that there are hidden truths there. Today we are going to look at a couple of scientific truths included in the very first couple of verses in the Bible. You see, we have to understand one more thing. When God dictated or showed various things to people in the past, they just recorded them even though they did not understand. Later on, when Christianity spread, especially when it was translated, also originally it was translated into Greek about 250 years before Christ. What happened was, when people could not understand something, they rationalized it and translated it in a way that people at that time could grasp. So this is what happened with many translations. Bible starts with the words, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." In most translations it is recorded heaven instead of heavens, right? Because people could see only one heaven, but we know there are actually, Paul says he was caught up to the third heaven. So there are different levels. And also, when it is recorded in the second verse that there was darkness and earth was formless and the Spirit of God was moving upon the face of the waters. But that is not what it says in the original. In the original it says, earth was hanging in space or nothing, and there was darkness, and the Spirit of God was fluttering on top of the waters as well as in the deep of the waters. That is what it says in the original Hebrew language. Even Job wrote about the fact that God hung the earth in nothingness. You see, if there was no fluttering of the Holy Spirit, the entire earth would have been just a globe of solid water. Because scientists today say, if the sun stopped shining for 12 hours, everything would turn to ice. Now, we may not realize, scientists say the earth is at the correct distance from the sun to sustain life, as well as for water to be in a liquid form. We know North Pole and South Pole is full of solid ice. Why is it full of solid ice? Because the heat is not enough to keep the water in the liquid form. That is why. So that is why the Holy Spirit was fluttering on top of the waters as well as in the deep. Now, a lot of people may not have seen a hen hatching eggs. If you ask your grandparents, they might be able to tell you, after sitting on an egg for some time, the hen gets up and then flutters its wings and then goes and sits back on the egg. Now, why is the hen doing that? Obviously, the hen has no idea, but instinctively, she does it. In physics, we know work done, heat produced. So, therefore, when the Spirit was fluttering on top of the water as well as in the deep, the water was kept in the liquid form, even though there was no light, because the sun, moon and the stars were created only on the fourth day. And God, therefore, on the first day gave light. It doesn't say He created light, He gave light. Because light has warmth and it has magnetism. So we see physics in the first couple of verses of the Bible, and we see that God actually hung the earth in space. And he created what is there today as galaxies. All that is there in the first couple of verses. And now I want to tell you, right, that God also created the sun, moon, and the stars for signs and seasons. Now in Sri Lanka, we may not see the seasons properly, but there are 4 seasons: summer, autumn, winter, spring. And the word month comes from the word moon, because originally people went according to the lunar calendar. And there are 12 constellations in the heavens, in the sky. 12 constellations. Now the constellations change according to the months. In ancient times, they didn't have compasses. So the traders or caravan people, when they traveled the deserts, they traveled in the night. And they, looking at the stars, they would know which side is north, which side is south, which side is east, which side is west. So therefore, the constellations enable them to travel in vast deserts where there are no roads. Similarly, with the ancient sailors who traveled by sea in ships. So God made all those for the benefit of the people, for human beings. In the book of Nahum, chapter 2, verse 4, Nahum states, "Chariots jostle one another in broad streets. Their lamps are very bright. They travel like lightning." So poor Nahum did not have the words motor vehicles. So he said chariots. And for him, the modern broad ways would have looked really broad. So he says broad streets. Then he says they jostle. Just imagine vehicles traveling on a broad highway. They seem to have been like jostling one another. Then he says they traveled like lightning. For him, the modern day speeds of the vehicles would have looked like lightning. So he described it the way that he could. There was a person called Johann, in English called John, who lived 2000 years back. And he says there are 2 guys who will be in Jerusalem, who will be killed by a world leader, and their bodies will lie on the streets of Jerusalem, and people of every tongue, every tribe, every nationality will see their bodies lying on those streets. People who are against the Bible said, how can this ever be? How can people all over the world see parts of 2 bodies lying on the streets of Jerusalem? They could not even imagine how could that be. But today we know, when mass media projects their cameras on those 2 bodies, people in the whole world will see their bodies lying on the streets of Jerusalem. So this person called Johann or John in English saw this 2000 years back. So we can see that this God has written about things that are happening even in today's world. Some people have this misconception that the Bible is an ancient book. Let me tell you, Bible is a very modern book. It describes the modern society. It says people will not honor their parents. They will be lovers of pleasure. And there will be wars and famines and earthquakes all over the world. People in the same country will fight one another. This was unthinkable even 100 years back, but it is happening today. So Bible is a very modern book, and it also describes what's going to happen for the next 1000 years also. So friends, if you are interested in learning why were you born, where are you going, why am I here, why am I suffering, can I overcome the situations that I face, can I meet the challenges successfully, and can I live a fruitful and a happy life? Start reading the Bible. Remember, Christ never used the word religion even once because he didn't come to give a religion. He came to call us into a relationship with him. Therefore, he delights in revealing himself to those who throw him that challenge. Those who even say, if you are real, show yourself to me. And if you sort of are not that kind of person, my advice to you is get the Bible, even what's called the New Testament, and start reading. And you will be glad that you started doing that because you will be able to live a happy, successful, overcoming life. May God bless you.